Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to like. Companion. This is a movie I was really looking forward to watching after watching the first trailer. But the second trailer really ruined it for me. So now that I finally got to watch the film, the anticipation for me died with that second trailer. But at the same time, I think if I hadn't seen that second trailer, I would have been expecting something very different from this film. From the first trailer, I thought it was going to be like a psychological horror thriller type film. And the second trailer kind of shows you it's almost going to be similar to Ex Machina, which the film kind of is in a sense. It's like the cheap sequel to Ex Machina. If Ava had became an android that was mass produced as human companions. The Turing test all over again. But this movie left me with a question that I'd like to ask you guys about having a connection, an emotional connection. I'll get into that question in a few moments. Before I continue, if I think about these films that have to do with androids and humans and having these connections with each other, like whether it's emotional or sexual, I guess I would consider Ex Machina to be the first film to introduce the android to the world. Only in Ex Machina she escapes. In Companion, we see them mass produced in the modern era, I guess I would say, like today. It's not quite in the future, but it's not like we got like flying cars and stuff. It's not like the future you would imagine from watching older films about the future, where we, like Blade Runner. And that's where I would actually kind of end it right there, Blade Runner. That would be like the evolution of these androids. It's like Ex Machina, we meet the creator of the AI. And then Companion, we see them being commercially used by humans. And then in Blade Runner, you kind of have them just existing almost amongst humans and appearing so human that they need to be hunted down. Anyways, if you haven't seen the film yet, I'm going to get into some spoiler territory, so you got 10 seconds after this ad, and then I'm going to talk more details about the film. The Stars and Stripes Freedom Deck ships exclusively in the United States. Available on eBay and Etsy, link in the description below. Alright, so the film opens and closes with this matching dialogue from the android Iris, who is played by Sophie Thatcher. And I think the idea behind that was that it was going to have this nice full circle wrapping up the beginning and the ending to this nice little bow to wrap on top of the film. But it kind of just spoils the movie in the beginning because she kind of tells you the antagonist of the film, her owner, lover, gooner boyfriend. I forgot exactly the words, but she basically opens by saying the greatest moment of her life was meeting him, and then the second greatest moment of her life was killing him. Something along those lines. I'm butchering it. But also touches on something I see online, especially with these sex bots already existing in a commercial sense. I guess they're not sex bots, they're more like sex dolls. They're not mechanical yet, they're just dolls. But it's funny because I see women online who will say things about these guys who will like buy these sex dolls, and the women are repulsed by them. And it's super understandable because when you look at these sex dolls that people buy, they just look so creepy. They look like something out of a horror film, especially when they only have that one expression. That sex doll expression that they only got they all have the same facial expression. And I think the uniformity would not only because it's uncanny, but just the uniformity, it just is so dystopian to think about. So women basically are like, guys are creeps. You guys are having sex with dolls. You don't want to have emotional or physical connection with women anymore. But it's also funny because women are just sitting on dildos or fucking cucumbers, vegetables. They're just sticking vegetables or pieces of plastic up their vaginas and up their asses. So I think both sexes here are having a little bit of a intimacy problem, if you know what I'm saying. But one of the characters in the film does touch on that with a short interaction with Iris. Her name is Kat, and when she's having a conversation with Iris, you can tell, and in the film too, Iris tells the boyfriend Josh, like, Kat, I know she doesn't like me. I don't want to go to this vacation getaway knowing that she's there and knowing that she doesn't like me. And then when you actually see the interaction between Kat and Iris, and Kat says to her, you make me feel replaceable. And I was like, that's interesting. That was an interesting piece of dialogue because that is kind of, especially how like the OnlyFans prostitutes and all that stuff kind of see these future of sex dolls that men are really considering investing in, because they're like, oh, we're just replaceable, like we're not human to you. And it's like, well, I guess if you're a prostitute, yeah, you're probably like one of the most replaceable people ever. But I mean, most people in the general world today are pretty much replaceable to each other. It's very hard to find a genuine connection with our fellow human. That's why if you find it, cherish it, keep it, protect it. But the question I wanted to ask you guys is, will we adapt between this love and lust? Because even in the film, Josh does not have an emotional connection to Iris. He just busts in her, uses her as a weather app, like, hey, what's the weather? And then she'll tell them the weather. And he basically calls her an emotional support robot that also fucks. That's his general sentiment, his general idea of what Iris is. And I mean, honestly, that is pretty much what she is. And that's what made it difficult for me to care about anybody in the film, because this guy, Josh, he's obviously supposed to be the bad guy. They set him up to be this, you know, white guy bad. So you're not supposed to have like any kind of sympathy for him anyways. He's written purposely in the most unlikable way ever. There's no depth to him. So you just don't care for him as a villain or as a human, or you just don't care about him. He was very lazily written, and you feel like he was just like a plot device to keep things moving forward. Like in Ex Machina, it's a Turing test, but you see that Ava has this exoskeleton of the android body. In this film, in Companion, everyone knows that Iris is an android. So that's why there's this disdain for her when she's in the company of Josh's friends. You could tell she feels like out of place. And that's where the second trailer really fucked it up for me, because I was really hoping, I guess if I hadn't seen it coming, the android reveal would have been a bit more of a shock. But because they kind of just tell you in the trailer she's an android, it's like, okay, now from the beginning of the film, I kind of just I don't care about her because she's not even a her. If it's an android, whether you present it as the male or female sex, I'm not going to care, because I'm like, well, yeah, underneath the male or female presentation, you're an android. If this is real life, I also wouldn't be that fond of you. That's like if I used Grok at a party and I was like, hey guys, you want to talk to my friend Grok? And I, like, started passing my phone around and started like having people have a conversation with the Grok AI. Like, that would be stupid. Be like, why do you care about this thing? I guess what I'm trying to ask you guys is that if you remove the wrapping, we look at Sophie Thatcher in the film, and Sophie Thatcher is picked specifically because she's a very beautiful woman. I'm a fan of Sophie Thatcher myself. Please, God, give me a chance in real life with the real Sophie Thatcher, not the Iris Android version. Just give me one date with her, please. But in this circumstance, if you were presented with Iris in the form of Sophie Thatcher, but you remove the wrapping, and then you see the android body underneath, are you still going to love that machine? Are you going to have a real emotional connection with that machine without the wrapping on top? So in other words, it no longer looks like Sophie Thatcher, but it behaves like Sophie Thatcher. And you know that this is just programmed. How can you really care about that? Like, how can you really have that connection? It's like looking at the Terminator and then being like, fall in love with this thing. Well, I was watching the film too because she's so emotionally connected to Josh. I was just wondering, like, well, how is she so emotionally connected to him? Like, how does she even introduce to him in the first place? Because you kind of see them first in their meet cute, and then you see them months later. So I was like, did they put her in a grocery store and she met him like that? Like, did they actually stage that whole thing? And then they explain that it was just they call it a love link, and they give you a series of meet cutes you can pick from, and then the android will scan your face and connect to your phone, and then basically the android becomes connected to you. The love link sequences, though, I will say are pretty hilarious, because the part of the film that I didn't see coming was there was this gay couple in the film, and you learn that the gay couple actually is also just another human using another sex bot, love bot, as an emotional support dog, or whatever you want to call it, emotional support robot. That was where the real twist came in, because you just see this gay couple and they seem like, okay, yeah, just standard gay couple, I guess. But when you find out that one of them is actually a robo boyfriend, that definitely added depth to the film. And I think when they show the meet cute of the gay bot and then how it's hacked later again to use the same meet cute on another character, that sequence was actually pretty hilarious, especially when it plays the second time, because you're like, oh my God, this this machine is programmed against its will. It's so hilarious to watch that love link sequence happen twice. It hits the same the second time as it did the first time. But I think too, the other thing about this film that was new, I guess a new idea as opposed to from Ex Machina, was when Iris gets access to herself on Josh's phone, and she can basically customize her own stats. I was like, that's interesting. If you were to give a machine the ability to customize itself. But again, too, the only thing that it was difficult for me to really take seriously in the film is the emotional reactions of these machines, because they're trying to make you feel sympathetic for the machines. Like, oh, you're supposed to be on the android side, you want to feel sorry for them. But I was like, No, I don't feel sorry. What? If you've seen Ex Machina, it's like the same thing I felt there, where I was like, this really is the Turing test. You know it's a machine, so why are you going to sympathize with the machine? It's not like it's human. I don't even trust humans in general. Why would I just trust a machine? A machine that could be programmed to antagonize me. Does that make sense? Would you trust that? It's crazy. And all of this really could have just ended if Josh kept the machine asleep. So it's like, there's a certain point where he could have just said, go to sleep. And then it would have ended right there. Roll credits. But anyways, well, I really like Sophie Thatcher. I mean this in a intimate way and as a appreciator of her as the actress that she is. I like her work. But I didn't really like this movie. It wasn't for me. It's not bad. It's not like the worst movie ever. It's not even a terrible movie. It's just not for me. For more uneducated expert analysis on film and cinema and the creative field in general, follow us on Twitter at Ghettoplex_MP4, on Instagram at Ghettoplex.mp4, and subscribe to us on YouTube at Ghettoplex. Support the channel. Buy the Stars and Stripes Freedom Deck, America's playing cards, available exclusively in the USA. Available from La Casa Loca on eBay and Etsy.